الرحيم الحمد لله حمد شاكرين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد طب القلوب ودوائها ونور الأبصار وضيائها وعافية الأبدان وشفائها وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد كلما ذكرك الذاكرون وغفل عن ذكرك الغافلون. Today's subject, Ashrat As-Sa'a, which is the signs of the end of times. The word Ashrat entails, it's the plural of Shart, and As-Sa'a is the hour, which means what? That the word Shart linguistically means condition. Ashrat As-Sa'a meaning the condition of the hour, meaning these things will definitely come about before As-Sa'atul Kubra, which is the Day of Judgment, Yawm al-Qiyamah. And every year this subject, it excites a new debate amongst people whether the Ashratu Sa'a, have they approached? Have the Ashratu Sa'a occurred? What are the Ashratu Sa'a? To the point of interpretation, a ta'wil, that people can fall into al-khata' al-fahish, which is a wrong mistake regarding what? That they will say that this sign has occurred. An example of this. There is a hadith which mentions a man known as Adhu As-Suwayqatayn, which means that the man who will possess the two. As-Suwayqah is plural of, is dual of what? As-Saq. What is Saq? Al-leg. As-Suwayqah is a small leg. The man who will possess two bent legs, a man from Africa who will go from Africa into Makkah al-Mukarramah and demolish al-Ka'bah al-Musharrafah. This is one of the signs of Yawm al-Qiyamah. When President Obama was elected in the United States of America, people began to say that this sign is coming about. That this man, President Obama, is African origins, therefore this sign has come about. Do you see the misinterpretation? This is known as tahrif. Tahrifu Ashrat As-Sa'a, that people misinterpret the signs. Another example was when the Gulf War occurred in 1990, the first Gulf War. What happened? Saddam Hussein, he decides to invade Kuwait. And the American forces, they entered the Arabian Peninsula. This was in 1990. Straight away, the hadith which is in the Sahih of Imam al-Bukhari, which mentions that the Sa'a will not occur until the hadith states Yanhasiru al-Furatu, that the Furat, the Euphrates river, will be diminished. And in another version of the same hadith, Yahsiru al-Furatu jabalan min dhahab, that the Furat, the Euphrates river, will uncover a mountain of gold. So people, they had to interpret this hadith. What did they say? They said the gold that is mentioned here, jabalan min dhahab, is the oil wells that the Americans were fighting Saddam for in Kuwait. So this was a ta'wil of the hadith. But we know that was not the actual hadith. Because in that first Gulf War, not 99 from every 100 people did not die. So the sign did not occur. This is known as tahrif, which is misinterpretation, taking something out of its correct interpretation. But similarly, you have Ashratu Sa'a, signs of Yawm al-Qiyamah, that occur exactly how Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam foretold, how he prophesied. They will become true harfiyan, to the word. And we have examples of that. An example of that is the famous hadith of Jibreel alayhi salam, which I'm sure all of you have studied, 40 hadith of Imam al-Nawawi. What is the hadith Jibreel when the angel enters into the masjid and he asks Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam with regard to Ashratu Sa'a, the signs of the hour. And he asks regarding the hour, when will it occur? And then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam responds to him, and then he asks with regard to the ashratiha, its signs. And he is informed of two signs. One sign is regarding أن تلد الأمة ربتها, that the slave girl shall give birth to her mistress. And the second sign, أن ترى الحفاة العراة رعاء الشاء يتطاولون في البنيان. Two signs are mentioned. The first one was regarding the slave girl giving birth to her mistress. This entails what? It entails al-aqs, which is what? The introverted society. That rather than the mother being the mistress, the master over the daughter will become the mistress or the master over the daughter. It's an inverted society. That one of the ashratu sa'a is that you will have an inverted society. Things will be the opposite. And that is what occurs. Like rather than having the natural order, you will have disorder. And the second sign, it mentions a group of people who are described. Al-urata, naked. Al-hufata, which is barefoot. We know what the word al-hafi is, what? Someone having no shoes. They will be barefoot. Al-hufata. Ri'a al-sha'i, they will be herders of goats. Ri'a al-sha'i. يتطاولون في البنيان. Now يتطاولون, this is on the scale of what? Tafa'ul. What does tafa'ul entail? Mutual competition. يتطاولون في البنيان. They will not only build and construct, يتطاولون, meaning they will compete with one another in what? في البنيان, in competing with one another in buildings. This entails the change of condition in terms of hukm, ruling, in rulership, that the people who will have zimam al-hukm, they will have the authority of governing. They are described as al-hufata, they are described as al-urata. This designates their social status, that prior to them being able to compete with one another in constructing tall buildings, this is their background. To the point, in one hadith, many of you must have read a hadith where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentions a ruwaybidah, that a ruwaybidah, this group of people are described as a ruwaybidah. They will discuss things that they never discussed. This word ruwaybidah is from the root words of ra, ba and dad, which entails what? It's a lowly creature. So the lowly people, they will talk with regard to things of governance and these type of things. Today we observe this sign quite literally. How do we observe this sign quite literally? We observe that today the al-hufata, al-ru'ata, ri'a al-sha, these people, they compete with one another in constructing tall buildings. One example of this is the Burj Khalifa. This Burj Khalifa is now designated as the tallest building in the world. There are some Muslims who have a mindset that when you discuss with them, they will see this as progression. You will come across them many times. They will say, yes, look, you know this word, we have what? A tatawur, that we have modernization, that the world is being modernized. Look, we have the tallest building in the world, ya akhi. Doesn't this entail that we have progression? But what did the hadith state? That their mindsets will be inverted. How is this not progression? How it is not progression is that if the construction company was a Muslim company that constructed that tallest building, then you could say that there is some kind of progression. But all the construction companies are not Muslim companies. The architects are not Muslims. The designers are not Muslims. This is only a prefabricated progression that you are observing in the UAE. But something which I cover in this book also, real progression would mean that you need a sewage system. This Burj Khalifa, you go and do your research, it doesn't even have a sewage system. Every day they have workers arriving that they have to pick up the excrement in trucks, tons and tons of excrement and waste in trucks, and then take it somewhere to dump the excrement and the waste from the Burj Khalifa every day. How is this progression of any sort? So when the hadith states that they will literally be Bedouins constructing tall buildings, it means that the application of even city planning is quite literal. So then you have this Burj Khalifa being constructed in the UAE, then another Bedouin family decides that they will construct a taller building than the Bedouin family that rules the UAE. They decide we will construct a taller building than the building that we have in the UAE. And that is a sign that you are observing literally. So what is the qa'idah, the rule? When we say this word qa'idah, what does it mean? Qa'idah, don't get qa'idah mixed up with the terrorist organization qa'idah. Qa'idah is a rule. The word qa'idah is a maxim. How do we, what is the qa'idah of understanding hadith of Ashratu Sa'ah? One of the qawa'id, the rules that I mention in the book, is that when the sign occurs, it will be so exact that you will not be able to dispute the sign. You will not be able to dispute. For instance, many of you must have read the hadith that in Akhiru Zaman, in the end of times, a man will leave his house, and when he returns back, his shoe will inform him of what his family has been doing while he has been away. Or his walking cane will inform him of what his family has been doing while he has been away. When you check all the classical commentaries, they give interpretations to this sign. Some of them say it could mean this, it could mean that. They give different interpretations. But in our day and age, the sign has occurred harfiyan. What do I mean by harfiyan? Literally. How? You can get these recording devices in shoes. You place the recording device in a pair of shoes. You leave the recording device in your home. You have a walking cane. You place the recording device at the top of the walking cane. You can even get a pen, a recording pen. You place the recording pen in your pocket, and it records not only the picture, the sound also. And a person will go, and then he comes back and he plays the video on the walking cane, and the walking cane will inform him of what his family has been doing while he was away. The sign has occurred literally. But 100 years ago, if you had informed people this would occur literally, they would not understand. They would not understand how does this occur literally. This is how many of the Ashratu Sa'ah occurred literally. I'll give you an example. In 2003, if you remember, many of you are young here to remember what 21 years ago, but many of us are old enough to remember. In 2003, the United States invaded which country? Iraq. And that was in around March and April 2003. I was in Damascus at the time. So we were all confused. What is occurring? America is invading Iraq. Then a year or two later, what happened? The Iraqi people, a number of refugees came from the Iraqi border and they entered Syria. Even in that time, while I was living in Damascus, Damascus surged with what? Iraqi people. What about the other signs? Like the war in Al-Iraq. The war in Al-Iraq was foretold in the Ashratu Sa'ah by Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. There is a Yemeni Shaykh, Abu Bakr al-Adani. I don't know if you've heard of him. Some of you from Yemen must have heard of him, Abu Bakr al-Adani. He passed away, rahimahullah, a few years ago. He states when he was in Saudi Arabia, one of the shuyukh in 1990, he said to him, go and open the Sahih of Imam Muslim and you will find the hadith relating to the current war in Iraq. Which hadith? You may think, which hadith is this? Informing us with regard to the war, current war in Iraq in 1990. The hadith is the hadith of the sanctions. There is a hadith on the sanctions. Which sanctions? That Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentions, yumna'u min ahli al-Iraqi, that what will be prevented from Ahlul Iraq. You go and check the hadith. It mentions as-sa' wa mud. What is this sa' and al-mud? As-sa' wal mud is measurements. As-sa' wal mud is measurements. What measurements? This as-sa' is a container. In the old times, in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you know this sadaqatul fitr we give every year. What do we give? We give a sa' of tamar, dates, a sa' of hinta, wheat, sa' of bur, which is barley, hinta and sha'ir, wheat and barley. This sa' is a container. In the Hanafi school, it's 3.8 kilograms. In the Shafi'i school, it's 2.7. In the Shafi'i and Hanbali school, it's 2.7 kilograms. In the Maliki school, it's 2.76 kilograms. This is the sa'. What is al-mud? Al-mud is rubu' sa', 1/4. So this is measurements. You may think, why are measurements being mentioned regarding Ahlul Iraq? The hadith states, يُمْنَعُ مِنْ أَهْلِ الْإِرَاقِ سَاعُهَا وَمُدُّهَا. Why is the measurement being mentioned? The answer is very clear to all of us who lived during that time. What were the sanctions on Iraq? They related to what? Food. One of the first things that Iraq was sanctioned was food. Foodstuff was prevented from reaching Iraq. So that occurred harfiyan in the year 1990. The sanctions on Iraq continued till when? They continued until the fall of Saddam in the year 2003. So Saddam's regime finishes in 2003. 13 years of what? Sanctions on Iraq. But the hadith doesn't finish there. The hadith also mentions sanctions on Ahlul Sham. So people were thinking in 2005 and 6, there are no sanctions on Sham. So has the hadith occurred? Then suddenly that civil war starts in 2011. Remember, Bashar al-Assad was very beloved to the West prior to the revolution. He even visited 10 Downing Street. He even lived and slept in Buckingham Palace. But after 2011, what happens? The sanctions start on Ash-Sham. Literally on the whole Bilad al-Sham. Not only on Gaza and Palestine, because the sanctions on Gaza and Palestine have been going on for time, to the point that at that time, I remember people were saying, perhaps the sanctions on Bilad al-Sham entailed the sanctions on Gaza. Because there were sanctions on Gaza in 2005 and 2006. But what occurred in 2011, the whole of Sham, there were sanctions. So that sign has occurred. But then there is a third country which is mentioned. Who can tell me which third country? Egypt, correct, Misr. Currently speaking, there are no sanctions on Misr, on Egypt. But Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us 3 countries. Which countries? Al-Iraq, Al-Sham, in this order. In this order. Al-Iraq, Al-Sham, Misr. Yes? So that means Misr, the sign has not occurred just yet. So Abdul Fattah Sisi now making videos saying, ما قتلت أحدا, and this video that come out recently of Abdul Fattah Sisi saying, I haven't killed anyone, I haven't taken money of anyone, even though when he killed Mursi rahimahullah, there was uproar even in our country, in Pakistan, regarding the killing of Mursi, that you placed the man in prison And then not only place him in prison, you do not allow him even to have access to the Mus'haf of the Quran. And then Mursi said, that's fine. If you do not give me the Mus'haf, it's not because I need the Mus'haf, I am a Hafiz of the Quran. But this is something non-Muslims carry out. Meaning even non-Muslims, not all of them do this. But they didn't even give him the Mus'haf of the Quran. The hadith, which is in Sahih al-Bukhari, it mentions that the Euphrates River will diminish to the point that Jabal min Dhahab, a mountain of gold. Now let me mention something regarding this sign, because this sign could happen very quickly also. We live at the threshold of these signs. How can this sign happen, someone may say. Some of them, they find it mustaghrib, meaning strange. How can you say that Jabal min Dhahab, a mountain of gold, can appear at the Euphrates River? Firstly, never underestimate Qudratullah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the divine power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wills something to occur, it will occur. But one of the versions of the same hadith, which Al-Imam Jalaluddin As-Suyuti rahimahullah passed away in the year 911 Hijri, in his commentary on the Sunan of Imam Abu Dawood, he has a commentary on that. He mentions that some of the wordings mention kanzan min dhahab. Kanzan min dhahab. What's kanz? Treasure. So one word is jabal min dhahab, the other word is what? Kanzan min dhahab, which is a treasure of gold. And one mentions kanzan min dhahabin wa fidda, which is what? A treasure from gold and silver. So many of you, if you followed the Euphrates River news, for some reason now, no one is reporting about the Euphrates River. This could have happened because the Iraqi government has placed a prohibition on people reporting regarding the Euphrates River. So no new reports come out. But when the water level was receding, there were artifacts being found. You could find different types of artifacts in the Euphrates River. They found graves, old graves, maqabir qadima. They found old graves, and they found what? They found different artifacts, athar qadima, that what will happen, you can tell that when it goes further down, what will the hadith will be, the prophecy shall come true, that there will be something found, and it will be quite literal. So in this day and age, we live in the day and age of malahida. People who are atheists, they don't believe in this type of thing. They say things like, oh, if there was gold under there, the archaeologists or geologists would have discovered the gold. The answer is, who said that they went around with different detecting devices, going around looking everywhere? It's not essential. Did you hear about the lithium gold found in Saudi Arabia recently? In Saudi Arabia, now, in Mada'in Salih alayhi salam, they found lithium gold under the ground. They hadn't found this lithium gold for hundreds of years. They found it now. And they will dig up this lithium gold, which is foretold in the hadith of Sayyiduna Ali radiallahu an in the Mustadrak of Imam al-Hakim. Imam al-Hakim has this hadith on the authority of Sayyiduna Ali radiallahu an, that they will find ma'adin in Arabia. Ma'adin, the word ma'adin you'll translate as minerals. They will find minerals in Arabia. But the mountain of gold they will find where? The hadith specifies the region. Which region? It specifies the border of Iraq and Syria. The border. So the Euphrates River, Nahr al-Furat, it runs through Turkey. From Turkey it runs through Syria. And from Syria it goes across the Iraqi border into Iraq. On this borderline, they will find Jabal min Dhahab. Today, that area, Deir az-Zor, where the Kurds occupy, they've balkanized all of Syria, made it into factions. These are long-term objectives of enemies of Islam. to balkanize the Muslims wherever they may be. How? If you balkanize Syria, you make it 3 parts. You have the Kurdish part, you have the Arab part, and then you have the Ladikiyya, which they give to the minorities like the Daruz and the Nusayriya with the Russian bases. When they balkanize Syria, there will be no real opposition to the state of Israel. Similarly, you divide Iraq, Kurdish region, Shia region, Sunni region. So like Anbar, all these areas are Sunni, and then Tikrit, that is Sunni. You make Sunni Shia division, then you make parts of Baghdad and all that region into a Shia region. Who will take on Israel? The Arabs are finished, meaning you divide Syria into 3, you divide Iraq into 3, and then finally you divide Pakistan also, because after Iran, it's Pakistan's turn. Why? You make Balochi separatists, you make separatists in PKK, you make separatists in Kashmir, and you have the last fighting army of the Muslim world finished also. Any potential army that may fight, you balkanize the entire region. And you have Iran invaded, and of course you utilize propaganda amongst the Sunnis to accept the invasion of Iran also. This is something that happens. It's a reality that the Sunnis will accept the invasion of Iran, even if it happens at the hands of Israel. In that fitan, in that tribulation, you have the appearance of a mountain of gold. Deir az-Zur is the region near, Deir az-Zur is near the Euphrates River. If a mountain of gold appears during this type of chaos, the chaos that we have now, you have the division of the Kurds in the north carrying guns, you have the Arabs in the south, division based on ethnicity. In the past, the Deenul Islam in its days of Sharaf, you had a general commander who was a Kurd, famously known as Salahuddin al-Ayyubi. Salahuddin al-Ayyubi, his chief was a Turk known as Nuruddin Zangi. You have subjects who are Arabs, but what united them was Deenul Islam, meaning al-Akhuwa al-Islamiyya, the Islamic brotherhood amongst them kept them united, irrelevant to ethnic divisions. But what do we have now? We have this cancer of nationalism, that the cancer of nationalism enters the Muslims and it divides them so many times. How many times will you divide amongst yourselves? And in that chaos, you have the appearance of this mountain of gold that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam foretold. And what will occur? Out of every 100 people who go for the gold, 99 of them will die fighting for that gold. They will die. And some of them will say, and this is something important to listen to, they will say, perhaps we will be the one man who will survive. So what does that tell you? They will know it's haram to go for the gold, because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, if you hear about this event, do not go to take that gold. But what will they say? They will come out with the ta'wil. They will come out with the interpretation. They will say, perhaps we will be the one man who will survive. So we will go for the gold. And they will go, and what will happen? 99 out of 100 will die for that gold. Major war. What does that tell you about the end of times? It tells you that in the Akhir Zaman, it's Ayyamud Dajjal. Ayyamud Dajjal, days of what? Days of being fooled. In one hadith, it mentions khida'at. What is khid'ah? Khid'ah is trickery. Yes? The hadith, al-harbu khid'ah. That war is what? is propaganda in one sense. So these will be sanawatu khida'a, years of what? Of being fooled. People will be fooled. And that happens through the media. You can make the good man look bad and the bad man look good. And that is what happens in Akhirul Zaman. The liar will be called truthful and the truthful one will be called kadhib. In areas like Duma and Dar'a, the young kids, they went to the wall, they spray painted. What did they spray paint? جاء دورك يا دكتور. جاء دورك يا دكتور. In reference to who? To Bashar, because he's a ophthalmologist or some eye doctor or something. He didn't finish his degree though. He came back to Syria in 1994 from London. He didn't finish the degree. But they said, your turn has come, doctor. So they spray paint this, and then the mukhabarat, the secret police, they take the young children, they torture them, and Hamza al-Khatib, rahimallah, was martyred. Everyone knows the history. But this narration states that this will start fitna to Sham. Now there's some people who don't like calling it fitna. I don't know if you've come across these people, they say don't call it fitna. It is a fitna because people died. That is why it's a fitna. But what happened is that if you count from 2012, so the graffiti started, was in 2011. The militias, they start in late 2011. The major battle for Halab occurs in 2012. The major battle for Halab. Around 12 years, you get to the year 2024. And on December the 8th, Bashar, he leaves Damascus. So around 12 years later, Bashar is gone. When we would go from here, from England, you exchange £1, you would receive 70 lira, and then it went up slightly to 90 lira. And with 70 lira, with £2, you could buy all your grocery. With £2. We would go to the market, we would be shocked. How come the oranges are so cheap? The grapes are cheap. Everything is cheap. Why? Because everything was local produce. But what has happened now? The Americans, they have taken the oil wells, they have taken all the agricultural land. The Americans control all the agricultural land. So the prices have gone up to the point that the bread is expensive now, that the people need to queue up for bread. This sign has never occurred the way it is literal today. So, likewise, it mentions that there will be white palaces in Bilad Sham that will be constructed, that they will be reaching the sky. This occurred in which year? You had the Four Seasons Hotel first constructed in the middle of Damascus. Four Seasons Hotel. Prior to that, Damascus, generally speaking, has traditional buildings. So you have the old souk, you have the Ottoman style buildings, and then they build the blocks of flats everywhere. But the first white tower to be constructed, huge white tower, is the Four Seasons Hotel. This was known as the Four Seasons Hotel, and it was constructed by one of the Khaliji princes. But when the Syrian civil war started, Four Seasons, the name was changed. It was taken over by the regime and the name was changed. But the sign has occurred literally. Surprising, if the Euphrates River does not uncover a mountain of gold anytime soon, it would be surprising. It can not occur, meaning it's entirely up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But all the signs and the hallmarks are there for these signs to occur. The Iraqi government released a document which states that by the year 2040, the Euphrates River would have dried up entirely. Before concluding and just taking some questions, I would want to mention guidelines for us. What practical guidelines do we have living here in Beausoleil, Sparkbrook, these type of areas within Birmingham, which some mashayikh came, one shaykh, he came from Jordan to visit Birmingham. Recently he was a guest at our masjid. He said, you have more freedom here than our homes to act upon your deen. You have more freedom here to act upon your deen than many of the Muslim countries. So we should نربح من هذه السانحة. We should take profit from this moment that we have. We should utilize this moment, the freedom that we have. That we don't have a mukhabarat system that today you attended this dars, someone may take, when you go home you watch your back, that the mukhabarat will take you in a police van and do tahqiq, which they do in the Middle East. All of this they do. But that we have this time in this country to build, what should we do? The answer is that what I say to my students, that this time that we have, we should attain ilm of the deen, ilm, attend circles of knowledge, attain knowledge of Al-Quran wa Sunnah, that if you die doing this like we are doing now, that when you die doing this, you die shaheed. You attend the masjid, you attend a circle of knowledge, you learn some ayat of the Quran, you learn their meanings, their tafsir, you learn some hadith and their meanings, you attain the reward of a talibul ilm. If you die doing that, you die shaheed, meaning you are shaheed. You attain a high rank with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There is a very odd thing that you notice in the Muslim world. What is that odd thing? That odd thing is that in some countries you need a license to teach in the masjid. Is this not the case? In Egypt or in Saudi Arabia, you need a license to teach the deen. You need to get permission to conduct a circle of knowledge. We do not have that issue. Meaning, we do not have that issue in Pakistan. In Pakistan, you can halqatul ilma open, especially in PKK, in KPP, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, the northern areas. They have circles of knowledge. But in the Middle East, where the Arabs are being suppressed, they need license to teach ilm. Here we have that opportunity to study the deen of Allah. We can attend the masjid, we can attend circles of ilm and attain that knowledge. Do not lose this opportunity. Do not wait till you are old men that you have not taken advantage of that opportunity. So talabul ilm of Quran, ilm of Sunnah. That is what I mean by talabul ilm. And talab of your language. Because I was asking Akhi Abdullah regarding his young kids. I said, do they know Arabic? And of course he will struggle teaching them Arabic. Every Arab child here should know Arabic. Not only Arab children, the non-Arab children. Arabic language is so essential to learn that even if you forget your native languages, if you have Arabic language, you still have a connection with Al-Quran wa Sunnah. This is so important. You can never undervalue the value of Arabic language, of learning Arabic. So take advantage of this time and do that, but also acts of piety. Which acts of piety? Every Friday, relating to Ishratu Sa'ah. Every Friday recite Suratul Kahf. What's the benefits of Suratul Kahf? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creates for you a light from one weekend to the other. That light gives you furqan. It enables you to see, cut through propaganda. You'll be able to cut through when the news is lying to you spiritually. You have basira. If you cannot recite all of Suratul Kahf, just the first 10 ayat, of Suratul Kahf. But additionally, And this is the final point. While I was teaching Jami' of Imam al-Tirmidhi, we went through a hadith in Kitab al-Fitan. So in his Kitab al-Fitan, he has a hadith on the virtue of Salatul Fajr, which I didn't understand. But then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opened for me the understanding. And I explained this to the students. Al-Imam al-Tirmidhi has placed the hadith of Salatul Fajr in Kitab al-Fitan to notify the reader that when you pray your Salatul Fajr in jama'ah, in congregation, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will protect you from al-fitan. So protection is Salatul Fajr. This is why the local people in this area, it's fard on them to pray in this, depending on which school, in the Hanbali school. So those of you, I'll give the fatwa in all 4 schools. The Hanbali school, it's a condition, shart of praying in jama'ah. Yes? In the Shafi'i school, it's deemed emphasized also, but in the Hanafi school, it's sunnah mu'akkada, meaning it's emphasized, qareeb bil wajib. Meaning in all 4 schools, you find the emphasis on salah bil jama'ah. So this surrounding area, I walked up with my brother, he said, I didn't realize how close the masjid is. I said, it's wajib for you to pray in your closest masjid. Every masjid that is close to your house, you fill that masjid at Salatul Fajr, and you recite your Suratul Kahf. And of course there are other means by which we do not have time to cover. One of them is farming, which we'll cover some other time insha'Allah ta'ala, having allotments. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم وأتوب إليه جزاكم الله خيرا وأحسن الجزاء.